Hi everyone, Malcolm Oliver here again from Brilliant Fit. Today I've got some tips in relation to the Talent Fit report and understanding the different elements that are presented in that particular report. So let me jump in. You find the Talent Fit report under the view screen here, and simply do view Talent Fit report. So in this case, this is a particular finance manager role, and we've got this candidate called Matt Drum. So overall, the Talent Fit score is 68.8%. And you can see that represented by a natural benchmark fit, and then some scores that are what we call a partial fit, so they're very close to the benchmark but not quite in it. And then there's obviously some scores that are significantly outside. So overall, not a high score in relation to the talent fit. So if we go down here, we talk about why it's important to actually have a 70% or more fit. It really is about people being in the zone for most of their day when they're doing their job. And it's important to turn up and feel like you can actually be in the zone, contributing your energy levels in the right place. What we find is when it seems to drop below 70 to 60 and 50%, people are spending half their day doing things that they really don't, or aren't, I should say, naturally wired for. So that's an important thing. So always look for elements that are over 70%. So Matt, in this case, he's 68.8. Now let's look at the elements around why he's scored much lower. So there's 4 key elements here, and the report will identify those factors that are significantly outside the actual scores. The report will show you where Matt scored and what is the benchmark for these particular issues. And when you're more than 5 points outside the benchmark, it'll highlight as a red. If you're within 5 points, it'll highlight as a blue, and it'll give you partial points for that. So in this case, it's a finance manager role. And we're looking under the patient's main factor, we're looking at a sub-factor here called empathetic or rational. So if you're considering a finance manager role, this is the typical benchmark that we would recommend. So in this case, you can see that the empathetic score is significantly outside of that particular continuum or benchmark. And effectively, that is going to mean that the individual is particularly drawn to being empathetic rather than being rational. So what we recommended here is a higher natural talent for being rational and holding people accountable for this finance role. If we look at the next factor coming down here, it's a factor under risk. So again, finance manager role, you would expect to be on the lower side to the mid side around risk. And in this case, it's actually looking at risk tolerance. So the 2 different elements of risk, one is an appetite for risk, and the second one is actually where's your tolerance level. In this case, Matt's particular score is particularly high as well. So he's quite risk tolerant. So what that effectively means is that when he's doing things, his ability to be able to rationalize and process risk, and when it doesn't work out, is particularly high. And he may actually be lax in the way he approaches future risk. So in other words, his tolerance is too high. So in this case, for a finance manager role, there should be a natural desire for a greater level of certainty and stability for this particular role. The third one I want to touch base on here is around creativity. Now, this one comes, you can see the creative benchmark score here is between 35 and 50, and that's very common for a typical finance manager role. In this case, Matt scored at 60 or very close to 60 on the scale. So this comes back to, do you want original thinking finance managers? So it might be a pretty rare case that you might look at this and say, yes, that might be acceptable. In the case where it's a very complex startup and someone needs some particularly innovative ways of doing things. But 99% of the time, you are not looking for someone who's an original thinker when it comes to managing finance on a day-to-day basis. That actually creates a higher level of risk for the actual business itself. So not a good natural score, and hence outside the benchmark. The last one I want to touch on today is this factor under people, and it's expressive versus serious. So this is probably the lesser factor and concern. It just means that they'll be naturally quite passionate, expressive in the way that they actually handle things. While not critical, it is still significantly outside the actual benchmark range for this particular job. So this would be a highly engaging, talkative, motivated kind of finance manager, which is not typical for this particular range. So the reason for understanding the elements is particularly important, and as you'll see, different elements actually have more critical importance than others in doing so. All these four are outside, and as I said before, when we go up to the top here, you can see as a result of that, Matt's natural talent fit score overall is actually below 70%. So again, you're looking for people typically in the zone above 70%. If you get 80 or 90 or even higher, that's fantastic indeed. So today, I hope that tip's been helpful for you in interpreting the Talent Fit report. I'll be back with another tip in due course. Bye for now.